This episode of the Cult Popture podcast was brought to you by our Patreon. If you want to tell us which films we should watch, get up to 2 extra exclusive podcasts a month, give us something to talk about in the post-credit scenes at the end of each episode, or even contribute to the discussion in the episode itself, then please consider joining the cult and donating at www.patreon.com/cultpopture. How does the Wild Thornberrys opening sequence start? It's like, that's me. I'm AJ, and that's Richard. We found him. What a piss poor. I needed to look up what the actual words to the intro
And AJ, he found us.
I was going to go with the Rugrats.
I got a mom, a dad, and a sister.
There you go.
And something amazing happened. And now I can talk to babies.
I was going to do the Rugrats opening theme instead, but I'd just done that off pod as a joke and was like, okay, I'll start with Wild Thornberrys.
Oh god, Richard can't handle hearing that twice. Wait, should we do Wild Thornberrys opening and you sing the Rugrats theme and I'll recite the okay, here we go.
Ready?
Yep. This is me, Eliza Thornberry, part of your average family. I got a dad, a mom, and a sister. Here is Donnie, we found him. And Darwin, he found us. Oh yeah, about our house. It moves, because we travel all over the world. You see, my dad hosts this nature show, and my mom shoots it. Okay, so we're not that average. And between you and me, something amazing happened. And now I can talk to animals. It's really cool, but totally secret. And you know what? Life's never been the same.
And then finally, ba-ba, dung, 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 dung. I love that part. I love all the sound bites on Klasky Csupo and stuff like that.
Yeah. Interestingly, there you mentioned they were talking today about Rugrats and the Wild Thornberrys too. IPs you may know more for their TV shows, but they did both foray into film and then crossover in the epic Rugrats Go Wild. They are both series created by Klasky Csupo, which is the pronunciation of Gabor Csupo's last name. Arlene Klasky and Gabor Csupo. And also Paul Germain co-created Rugrats, Wild Thornberrys. Had a few other co-creators who I'm not going to name.
And we're talking about them today, Richard, because this is, of course, film franchise Fortnights on the Cult Popture podcast. Well, our intro got away from us a bit there, but this is our show where Richard and I, AJ, we diligently study a film franchise for a fortnight and then come and report it to you. And having rolled it randomly last fortnight, we're here to tell you about these 4 Rugrats / Wild Thornberrys movies, a franchise I was looking forward to and a lot of people in the Discord were looking forward to, and here we are doing it. This is also, probably should mention this is our final episode of Film Franchise Fortnights for a few weeks.
For the season.
For the season.
Yeah, for a few weeks. We're going on our... Normally we have our sort of hiatus over December, January, and that's when we do our most disappointing and most anticipated. But they got delayed partly because we wanted to do The Matrix and partly because I'm, fingers crossed, going overseas in just over 48 hours. Negative COVID tests pending, which this might date really badly. And
I hope not, man.
I'll get you to cut this out. If you're hearing this part, I'm in China. If not, this is AJ just like awkwardly deleting it and edit.
Hi, AJ.
Anyway.
How's it going?
Hi, AJ. Well, then maybe we could release that on the Patreon or something, because we're still taking a break either way.
Yeah.
So anyway, these are based on some of the Nicktoons series. Rugrats was the second Nicktoon created under that term. Do you know what the first one was?
Doug.
It was Doug.
Yeah.
So Doug, Rugrats, and the Ren and Stimpy show premiered on the same night in 1991, but in that order. Obviously, Rugrats outlasted the other two by quite a bit. It's tied for the 8th longest running. It's tied with King of the Hill for the 8th longest running animated show.
Ironic, since it's about a very small passage of time in which we are infants. I will warn you, I know you've done the research for this episode, Richard, but like, just for some reason, I have a lot of like spare pieces of Rugrats knowledge. I don't know why. I've just picked it up over the years, but I hadn't seen the movies in a long time. So.
Yeah. Do you know how many Nicktoons there are?
No, tell me.
The 59th just premiered a couple of weeks ago. And that's called Big Nate.
Cool. Is that the Uncharted show?
There's also Rugrats as number 55 as well as number 2 because there's a reboot.
A reboot
Some
with sort
horrible
of
noise.
terrifying, it's sort of somewhere between Spider-Verse and just regular 3D animation, I think.
Yeah,
is what the Rugrats reboot looks like.
Very odd. But yeah, so the creation of Rugrats is somewhat interesting. You sort of forced my hand, being like, now I know you've done research on Rugrats the series, and I was like, I didn't even think to do research on Rugrats the series, but the creation of Rugrats is kind of interesting. So it's like the then husband and wife Gabor Csupo and Aline Klasky, along with Paul Germain, were working on a different show where when the creator of that show changed from Klasky Csupo Studios to Film Roman, and then they said, screw The Simpsons, we're going to make our own show, and they made Rugrats because they were working on The Simpsons in its early seasons.
To be fair, that's, it's not like they jumped off the golden goose and sunk to the bottom of the ocean. Like the Rugrats for a long time was perfectly comparable to The Simpsons in terms of success. So.
Yeah, and it's not like The Simpsons suffered because of them leaving in 1991.
You can see in some of those early Simpsons episodes, like that unmistakable, what are their names again? Klasky Csupo, art style, which their sort of little mini Nickelodeon universe all exhibited certain features. I'd say the dominating characteristic of Klasky Csupo cartoons is everyone's really ugly.
Yeah, and that's apparently like when they were designing the show, they said they wanted the babies to look interesting more than cute. So they're
cool.
more focused on giving them distinctive designs than just looking like cute little bubbies. But yeah, so the first Rugrats movie, there's 4 movies total we're talking about. 2 Rugrats ones, one the Wild Thornberrys one, and then one that's both. So the movies are the Rugrats movie from 1998, Rugrats in Paris, the movie, 2000, and the Wild Thornberrys movie, 2002, and then Rugrats Go Wild in 2003. So we'll start off without further ado, unless you had more fun Rugrats facts you wanted to spout.
I've got a fun segue, if you would like.
Okay.
So one of the things I know about the Rugrats series is that Arlene Klasky was really like shafted by the direction of a lot of the creative decisions that were eventually made. And I know one of the things she hated in the series, and I think eventually left the show because of, was the character of Angelica, who she hated as being this bratty little girl and hated the phrase "you dumb babies" and thought that was, against the spirit of her show. And so if she hated that, Richard, if she hated any kind of sort of even something like a mildly antagonistic force against the babies, I can't imagine she likes any of these movies, because we are about to talk about 4 incredibly dark movies about babies, I think.
Apparently, I did read about that, and I just remember seeing that there was a quote from Arlene saying, like, she didn't mind Angelica in the Rugrats movie, or something like that.
Okay.
Which is like an odd distinction to make. Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, it's like, I think it was kind of like hey, you famously hate Angelica. How do you feel about her in the movie? And she's like, she's fine now. Like, but also, it's worth mentioning as well. So Rugrats sort of like went off air for a while. There was a 2 or 3 year period with only released 2 episodes, which was the Rugrats Passover episode and the Rugrats Chanukah, which is 2 episodes that are like universally praised for and like treat these Jewish holidays kind of thing. And then there was like a 1 year period where Rugrats was played like almost 700 times on TV.
Wow.
And these reruns were just so popular they then started making new episodes, and sort of that's when they made a deal to make films. But Rugrats movie 1998. This is directed by Igor Kovalyov and Norton Virgin.
It's a very everyone involved in Rugrats is a very fun name.
Everyone like all. The second one's directed by Stig Bergqvist, which is like Bergqvist.
Wow.
So very fun name. But yeah, Rugrats movie, what is it about?
Okay, so the kind of like the big thing this movie did was introduce Tommy Pickles' little brother Dill. Assuming everybody listening has an approximate knowledge of all the characters in Rugrats. So yeah, Dill Pickles is born, and Tommy struggles to get along with him, and then through a hilarious mishap involving a reptile wagon that their toy-invented father, Stu Pickles, has made for like a competition for the reptile company, they end up getting lost in the woods with... All the babies get lost in the woods. Angelica grabs Spike, who's the dog, and they go to look for the characters. The adults are going to look for the babies, who go on their own little adventure, trying to find a lizard, which is what they call a wizard, to take them home. They experience lots of death-defying stunts on the way, including... some circus monkeys that have from a crashed train, and a wolf which nearly eats them, and yeah, then they find the parents find the babies, and everyone's learned to get along a little better.
Yeah. Had you seen this movie before?
Yeah, I'd seen it a couple of times. I don't think I saw it at the cinema. I think I remember it being rented on VHS maybe, and I remember maybe 7 years ago, it was pre-podcast, I saw it was on Netflix or something, and was like, what is the Rugrats movie like? And chucked it on, having to rewatch it. And then watching it, of course, for this one, as the only times I'd seen it, yeah.
Yeah, I did see this in the movies, and I hadn't seen it since. I was like... It was one of these, like, I know I've seen this. And then watching it, like, nothing at all was familiar about it. And then there's a scene where the monkeys sing Witch Doctor by David Seville, the fictional patriarch of Alvin and the Chipmunks. The song that goes, ooh, ee, ooh, ah, ting, tang, walla, walla, bing, bing. And I was like, and then it was like, I seeing that downloaded the entire film into my brain. And it was like I didn't recognize anything. And then it was like, oh my God, I see the entire thing now. And then there's the scene where the monkeys are like kind of attacking them, and they're attracted to these like bananas, and fucking Tommy is getting so fucked off with his little brother that he is about to pour fucking bananas on him so that the monkeys will just tear him to shreds. And then when Dill's so afraid of the hate in Tommy's eyes,
it's a brutal scene.
It's fucking brutal. That was another scene where I was like, oh fuck, I do remember this, holy shit. But I mean, yeah, so I saw this 24 years ago, and yeah, fuck, yeah. So, this genuinely would probably be one of the first movies I ever saw in the cinema.
Wow.
The whole way through. I cried and got taken out of Pocahontas.
Which,
when did Pocahontas come out?
I remember that story. 94 was Pocahontas, I think. Or maybe 95 came out. It was,
95, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't think I saw it at the cinemas, but I remembered it well enough, and I remember it being an odd kind of movie. What are your thoughts and opinions on the Rugrats movie?
It's not very good. I didn't like it. Yeah, so it was interesting because Rugrats is a property that I'm nostalgic for. And yeah, like, you know, I grew up watching a lot of Rugrats, but watching the Rugrats movie, I was like, did I just watch it a lot because it was on, or did I actually like it? And because I was like watching these, I was like just getting frustrated with the fact that like the entirety of the plot or like of the jokes are just hey, look, they're saying the word wrong. Like, we got to find this
That's
lizard.
the heart of the whole
And it's like,
show.
I've got my sponsitivity, which is instead of responsibility. And it's, I don't know. And then learning that it's like, no, even in amongst, Rugrats fans, this isn't considered a good movie. And so it was like, oh, okay, yeah. What do you think it has on Rotten Tomatoes?
54%.
59, very close.
Right.
Yeah, so yeah. What did you think of it?
I also have nostalgia for Rugrats, but I am not as jaded as you in a rare role reversal from our usual positions. I really like the cartoon. I have revisited it as an adult a couple of times, and I think it's really, really brilliant, and it's really, really cute and wholesome and really fun storytelling, and has a lot of stuff going for it. Them pronouncing words wrongs, that's fine. I think that's great. Here's what I think is wrong, or here's one of the things I think is wrong with the movie. As I said before, I think this movie is too dark. It is incredibly dark. It is about a
Could
family.
hardly see it.
It's set at dusk for a lot of it. It is about a family whose infants disappear, and the film goes full like, and here's how a family would react to their children going missing. It doesn't cartoonify that part. It doesn't have them like not truly come to grips with the reality of their babies being missing. It is like there is news anchors. There's like Tim Curry actually plays a news anchor.
Tim Curry, who's in every Rugrats film, finally.
Yeah. I think it's what it is it's super uncomfortable because you want to watch happy-go-lucky Rugrats, and now you're having to deal with Stu Pickles cradling Dee Dee as she's crying in his arms because their two infant children have gone missing.
And they cut to the infant children, and one of them's trying to murder the other one.
And here's what I think is the very fine line that the Rugrats show walks on, and so does this movie, but for some reason it works in the show and it doesn't work in the movie. And that is, almost all the Rugrats plots are based around the kids, the babies wandering off and getting into some kind of trouble, and it's often quite scary trouble, but because adults don't view it, the reality of that trouble is not communicated to the audience. So like Tommy Pickles can like nearly fall into the ocean, but if Stu or Dee Dee don't see it, and he gets away without truly understanding the danger of the situation he was just in. Like it's like there's one where Tommy gets kidnapped, but he gets put back home before the parents find out, so it's not sad. It's just kind of
it's
interesting. It's just funny. And because Rugrats in general, each Rugrats story is like, hey, what if this thing happened to these babies? Where if one thing went wrong, you, the viewer, would witness the horrific death of several infants.
Yeah, have the hands of a wolf.
Yeah, or there's a scene where they're in the reptile wagon and it's like gunning down the staircase and like going all over the city. It's nearly getting hit by cars. You are one coincidence gone wrong away from seeing all these babies perish, which is such a freaking dark idea. And I think the one of the problems with this movie is that the parents are aware of the danger the babies are in, and so the film has no choice but to be like, and that would be sad, right? Because the parents would be sad, whereas if they just didn't know, it would be a lot easier to stomach, I think. And as well as that, I think there are scenes in this. There's a scene where Angelica is chasing them and she's being dragged along by Spike, and she nearly gets hit by a truck which crashes into the forest, and she sort of like flies off this cliff and like bashes into a bunch of tree branches as she falls to the forest floor where she's fine. But you and I, the viewers as adults, know that would kill a 3-year-old in real life. Like she would be gone. She'd be dead. And I think all of these things create a really uncomfortable movie. I like the depths it goes to with Tommy not knowing how to deal with his little brother. And I think it's got to be the only movie ever made where the message is, you got to just let babies be babies, dude. You can't expect them to show any kind of sympathy. Like, it's such a specific lesson that Tommy learns that it doesn't really apply to any other age, so you don't see it in other movies. And so that, I think, is what's wrong with this one and what's wrong with Gone Wild. Go Wild, I beg your pardon.
Whoa, very
The
different
Rugrats
movie.
do not Gone Wild. I need to be very clear on this. Yeah, that's one of the things I don't like about this movie. What do you agree? Do you think that's...
Do you tell me I'm right?
No, do you think it's dark? Did it make you uncomfortable?
it is a dark movie. Yeah, and I mean, apart from thematically dark, it is also the design of the show has had like a, it's darkened in a lot of places. Mostly because it is striking how different a film looks on screen compared to on a little screen, and it's like, but the main difference is it's widescreen and there's shading on the characters. Yeah,
it looks sharper than the TV show, and I think we'll talk about it later because I think someone mentioned it in our Cult Elders section. I actually like that about
that there's a distinct difference.
That there's a distinction, and I think the SpongeBob movies kind of do that as well. Yeah. And I think that's a really fun and interesting way to take that.
It is. One thing that is actually really interesting, I just found out though, in a similar kind of vein, that do you know how Jimmy Neutron had the movie came first and then the series came afterwards?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know why that was?
Why?
It was so that
can I guess? I think I do know. Do you just want to tell me?
Yeah, I'll tell you.
You just tell me.
So that because they pitched the idea and they said, we'll do a movie and a series. And then they said, cool, yeah, we'll do a 13-episode series and then that can lead up to the movie. And they were like, well, can we make the movie first, give us a movie budget to design all the characters, and then we're just reusing the assets for the TV show rather than having to try and design assets on a TV show budget.
That's very smart.
Yeah.
Very smart animation decision. That's not what I thought.
What did you think?
I thought it was like they agreed to make the TV show and the movie and they made them concurrently, but the movie was finished first, so they released that first.
Oh yeah, no.
I thought I'd heard something like that before.
But that's like super clever to me, and that's why for the time Jimmy Neutron was able to look a lot better because they're just manipulating things that already spent all this money designing.
Nice. Yeah.
So a few things about this. If you're a Rugrats purist and you want to know this, it takes place between seasons 5 and 6 of the show.
Wow.
Interestingly, this was the first non-Disney animated film to gross over 100 million in the US.
In history. That is fascinating. Wow.
Yeah. There's another very fascinating thing like that coming up later on, which we'll get to.
I can't wait. What a great podcast this must be.
So, plans for a Rugrats film adaptation along with Ren and Stimpy and Doug ones began in 93, 94, when Nickelodeon made a contract with 20th Century Fox to produce a bunch of films in that time. You will notice, however, this film was not made by 20th Century Fox.
It's Paramount.
It is Paramount. So the contract expired with no films made. And then Viacom purchased Paramount in 94, which is also on Nickelodeon, and so the production restarted. But I don't think we ever got a Ren and Stimpy movie, although there is Doug's first movie, which was eventually
very ambitious title.
So Doug was a Nickelodeon show, but then Disney made Doug's first movie.
That's right, yeah. Back in the day when it was just the Wild West for IP ownership.
Yeah. What is Doug's first movie? There is not Dog's first movie.
God,
Doug's.
Channing Tatum's got taken care of that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no. It was just it's based on the Disney produced episodes of the Nickelodeon animated series, Doug.
Only the Disney canon.
Yeah, weird. So they but yeah, very ambitious title as you mentioned. Despite the name, never has there been a second Doug movie.
That'll be on all over the trivia section for Doug's first movie.
Speaking of trivia, we've talked before about doing a dumb IMDb trivia the movie episode of this podcast. This is it. There's so much dumb IMDb trivia.
Wow.
For these, but I just have a couple more things to add. Paul Germain, who I mentioned is one of the creators of Rugrat, along with Klasky and Csupo, didn't like the film. He left after he was the showrunner for 3 seasons before he went to work for Disney.
Mm.
He said he felt that the writers of the movie did not understand what the series was about and thought that moments such as Stu giving a watch to Tommy did not work, as the adults are not supposed to recognize the baby's intelligence. In addition, he felt that by giving Tommy a baby brother, Tommy was no longer the baby, which changed the story of the series from what Jermaine intended it to be. Interesting thing about the watch that is like, you wouldn't give your fucking 1-year-old a watch unless you knew he was intelligent.
Yeah, he gives him a watch to be like, it's what's it like a locker? What's a compass, isn't it? And
it's a sponsitivity.
It's a sponsitivity. It's to represent that he has to look after Dill. Who's your favorite Rugrat?
Probably Chucky, I think.
Yeah. I'm either Phil and or Lil. I think the voice acting on those two characters is so funny, and I want to talk about the voice acting maybe a bit later on. But the amount of like me and my friend Jack have this joke where we'll just be like Philip, Lillian.
Yeah.
It's like saying
Philip,
Lillian. I think that Phil has so many fantastic like last lines of a scene.
Yeah.
And like there's one in this movie where they're talking about a wolf because they heard a wolf, and like, we watched this movie where this little girl got eaten by a wolf, and they're like, oh my god. Then she's just like, she got out. Well, they got her out, and it's so funny, and I just think that they're such great. It's a great idea to make your show about babies, and then assign the ones that eat worms and do gross shit to like a pair of twins. I think is a really fun dynamic, and I think obviously Tommy and Chucky are like, especially across the movies, sort of share the protagonist role. I'd say Chucky is the protagonist of the second film, whereas Tommy's the protagonist of the first and third, or first and crossover, I should say. Whereas Phil and Lil never get that spotlight, which is a shame. There is an episode of the show that I really like, though, called Twins Peak, which is very funny.
It's also just talking about Phil and Lil as well. There was the very funny controversy with the reboot that they like explicitly made Phil and Lil's mum a lesbian, Betty DeVille. And it's like, she's to the point where it's almost an offensive stereotype. She's a lesbian in the original series as well. Like, right.
Yeah, because that's often a fan theory, because she's, not to be regressive, but exhibits several stereotypes of what you'd imagine a sort of butch lesbian character would be like. And her husband, Howard, the twins' father, is very submissive and... and I think I can imagine in the 90s conceiving those characters and being like, we'll make the wife wear the pants and the husband be the...
Well, I think it's like this was in 91 or whatever. This was what a feminist looked like. This was their like, we're gonna make the mum like a feminist, so she's got like the female symbol on her shirt and wears the pants in the relationship kind of thing. But it's like... Yeah, it's it's just very like similar to like the what's his face from Beauty and the Beast. What's the character's name? LeFou, yeah. That they're like, oh, we're making him gay, and it's like, no, LeFou is my bastion of masculinity. Then it's like, you probably,
you can make LeFou gay, it's fine.
Yeah.
So is Howard in the reboot then?
No, she's a single mum in the reboot.
Wow, so they fucking killed off a character. That's brutal.
He's yet to appear in the revival series, yeah.
Wow.
I didn't realize, I think, that Phil and Lil were voiced by the same person.
Yeah. What's their name? It's
Kath Soucie.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Who also voices Betty.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's essentially the same voice, but one is lower and one is higher and pitiful.
Yeah, but because it's both voices are ones that she's used in other things, and you go, oh, that's Phil, oh, that's Lil, but I don't think I realized that it was actually the same person. So that's very fun. So yeah, couple new segment we've got here. One which still, if you've got a better name for it, shout it out. This is called French Wise, and that's not wise W-I-S-E. That is French W-H-Y-S ? So this is the why of the franchise, and so it's like, why did this? Normally we talk about like you watch the first movie, you're like, what about this sparked a franchise? And I mean, with this one, it's like this came from a very specific time where I think theatrical movies for your TV shows were all the rage, and this kind of maybe even ushered in that period. So this is very much the why of this franchise is a lot more due to its ties to television than this film.
One thing I will say on franchise though is that I was of the belief that this is one of those like franchises by virtue where it's not really that they made a series of movies. It's more that they made a Rugrats movie. SpongeBob feels like this. It feels like they just made SpongeBob movies and not in terms of like thinking of them as sequels or anything. But the Rugrats in Paris begins with a parody, we'll get to it, begins with a parody of The Godfather, and the title changes to Rugrats 2 with The Godfather, which I thought was an interesting decision because you could just have it be Rugrats in The Godfather font because it parodies Godfather 1. But so they go out of their way to be like, this is the second Rugrats movie.
Yeah. So, as I mentioned, we've got a lot of Dumb IMDb trivia to get through on this episode. So, Dumb IMDb trivia is a segment where we look at the user-submitted pieces of trivia from IMDb, the Internet Movie Database. And, quite often, because anyone can write anything, they're quite dumb. Sometimes this is because they're factually inaccurate, which we've got here today. Sometimes it's because they're badly written, which we've got here today. Sometimes they just sound insane, which we've also got. We've got like every flavor of dumb IMDb trivia across this episode.
To illustrate how dumb IMDb trivia is, you could literally go to it right now and you could enter the piece of trivia. Cult Popture podcast host Alexander Jones says his favorite character in Rugrats is Phil and Lil, and that could be submitted. No one would stop you from doing that.
Yeah, there is we do exist. I wonder if we're still in. I'm going to quickly check a Barbie. Give me a Barbie.
I think
film.
we're in every Barbie one.
What's the name of Barbie film?
Princess Charm School.
Barbie Princess. See if we've been taken off the IMDb dumb IMDb trivia for Barbie Princess Charm School. If we're not on this one, we are going to have to check other Barbie movies. So. Here we go. In an attempt to heal the nation on February 14th, 2021, podcast hosts Richard Martin and Alexander AJ Jones of the Cult Popture podcast released an 18-hour comprehensive podcast reviewing the 37 Barbie films. The retrospective took over a month to prepare and features numerous guest speakers as well as original song created specifically for the podcast. 2 out of 3 found this interesting.
Very cool.
Now,
all right, give me my Rugrats movie dumb IMDb trivia.
All right, so Dill was originally going to be voiced by Madonna, but when Tara Strong recorded her scratch voice for the character, her impression of a baby crying was so accurate that it caused a woman in the room who had just had a baby to start lactating.
I feel like I've heard that before. That must be like a famous IMDb trivia.
It's mentioned like 3 times on the thing. But yeah, it's just what an insane thing to say. I mean,
Tara Strong, who doesn't play any of the other characters.
Does she not? Tara Strong, yeah, she's Dell, yeah.
So she came in to very famous voice actress, very successful voice actress, just came in to do a scratch track for a character.
She might be. She might have been like. There's a word for it, but it's like additional voices essentially.
What it will have been was they said, right, Tara will play Dill in the TV show, but we'll get Madonna for the movie.
So if I look at when her sort of when did her career start? Because I watched a documentary about it's called I Know That Voice, and it's about voice acting. And they all say that, like, people say, how do you get your start in voice acting, and there's a word for it, but it's essentially like you just have to go on and do these, but it's essentially like additional voices. So you show up and it's like, we need a crowd, so you get 30 people in and just get them to talk randomly, and then there's a bus passenger that says excuse me, and we just need a random voice, and it's like that's how you get your start, is doing that. And everyone, and all of them are just like, I fucking hate doing it, but that's where you start. So it's like this might have been at that point in her career, I don't know,
right?
But so another piece of trivia: Charlotte almost makes an innuendo when she says the phrase "born under Venus, look for a ... before she is cut off. That is the joke, but it's like
almost
it's makes it
trivia
innuendo.
as well.
That it's like don't not even say what the innuendo would be. It's obviously it would be penis.
I know what it is. Oh. Do you know what it is? I know what they were going to say there.
So this is there's another one that's like removed from anything else. This is just a dumb piece of trivia. So this is for Rugrats Movie. This is the only time viewers got to see Cat Dog in theaters. Because there was a Cat Dog short played before.
Right.
But without that, it's a very weird piece of trivia.
I missed Cat Dog in this movie.
The name Dill Pickles is obviously a play on the phrase Dill Pickles.
It's so obvious. Don't mention it. It's actually borderline acknowledged in the film as to why they name him Dill.
This is the only Rugrats film to not release in the 21st century. Which is factually inaccurate because the second one came out in 2000, which wasn't part of the 21st century. Because centuries and millennia, like the third millennium, and if you talk about it like that, but if you're talking about explicitly about the 21st century, that started in 2001.
Or imagine trying to explain any of that to one of the Rugrats. They'd be like mispronouncing millennia and century all over the place.
But yeah, I mean, obviously this is the only Rugrats film to not release in the 2000s, but not in the 21st century, sorry. But obviously, when we're talking about decades, that starts on the year, unless you're talking about, it's the 200th decade, which no one does. So, and then here's a couple, just for good measure, some that are just poorly written.
In true Rugrats fashion.
Yeah. Originally, Kimmy was going to appear in the series and in the movie Girl Who with Angelica and Susie. They lost with the babies in the reptile wagon, but then they deleted Kimmy from the movie.
Jesus Christ, what even is that sentence?
And also, so like every word is capitalized up until appear, and then there's like none except like girl and with is capitalized.
That's actually a situation where it's like, IMDb, get your shit together and start deleting this garbage.
And another one, Bob Camp and Butch Hartman was going to be the directors of the film. In the original story, the circus was the main antagonist, and the climax told about Chucky, Phil, Lil going to the circus and trying to escape for a reunion with Tommy and Dill, but the brothers with Angelica and Spike come to him. Camp and Hartman was eliminated as directors by problems in the script because the co-director, Kathy Malkassian, they rewrit the script, but Camp and Hartman refused.
Oh my god, what the fuck are these people talking about? It's like pieces of information, but then, and I'm like, okay, I get, and then somewhere along, I just completely lose understanding of.
I mean, Butch Hartman co-directing at one point is interesting, if true. But yeah, that is just an insane, no fucking punctuation and words capitalized seemingly at random. So yeah, a few years later we had Rugrats in Paris, the movie, Rugrats 2, I guess is the full title. September 2000, directed, as I mentioned, by Stig Bergqvist and Paul DeMeyer. What do you think this is on Rotten Tomatoes?
72%.
76%. You're very good today.
Thank you.
So in this film, the first film mentioned that the reptile wagon was being built for like a toy convention in Japan. And so in this film, the Rugrats go to a kaiju themed theme park. They meet sumo waiters, and at the end of the film, they come home with Chucky's dad comes home with a Japanese wife, and Chucky has a new Japanese sister. The film is set in Paris. Do you want to go into any more detail about what it's about, or?
No, I mean that's basically it. But yeah, as you're indicating, somewhere it seems very late into production, someone high up was like, no, it has to be set in Paris and not Japan. Because not only is those things you mentioned, the entire film has got like this Japanese aesthetic. There's a scene where Chucky has a dream that he's a martial arts expert named Chucky Chan.
Which is actually Jackie Chan's father's name, Charles Chan.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
The only Parisian stuff in it is that they, for some reason, take their dog to Paris with them, and he chases...
with a few hours' notice as well. Like Stu gets a call in the middle of the night, which is like, "You have to be in Paris tomorrow." They're like, "Oh, better get the dog.
Better get the dog. Can't find..." And all my friends. And this reminded me of in High School Musical 2, how he gets the summer job, and then he's like, "Can I hire everyone from my class, including people I'm not even friends with, to come work here as well?" Like, what? Like, in real life, only Stu would go. I can believe that maybe he could bring his family, but why is he bringing, like, the DeVilles?
Yeah.
They're just friends. They're just neighbors. They're not even, like, related to them.
Yeah, because Angelica, worth mentioning, is Tommy's cousin, because Angelica's dad is Stu, Tommy's dad's brother.
Yeah. And so the kind of crux of this movie is Chucky wants a mum, because his mum famously, canonically, died. And there's a very touching scene from the cartoon series in which Chucky learns about his mum and talks about how he knows she's still with him. It's very beautiful, and some of that comes over here into this movie. There's a song by is it Cyndi Lauper who sings I want a mom who lasts forever. I want a mom to live together.
That's Cyndi Lauper.
I do want to talk about the music at some point as well. And so that's sort of, I think that's why this is, without any protest, the best Rugrats movie of the three.
It's not a Gold Star franchise.
No, because it has, like, quite a sweet emotional core to it. It's still very weird. It's not as dark. The film ends with Chucky and the babies piloting a reptile-sized Evangelion unit to go and stop the wedding, which is happening during the timeline of the trip, where Chucky's dad is marrying, like, the wrong woman.
Coco LaBouche, voiced by Susan Sarandon in her first G-rated film.
Oh, interesting. John Lithgow also plays her, like, minion.
Yeah, his first animated film.
Yeah. So they're piloting this reptile robot through Paris, and it's like it's so, like, if you move your arm, it moves its arm. It's like
it's like Pacific Rim.
Yeah. It's a mech. And the reason I think, while ridiculous, this works far better than the first and Go Wild is that the parents don't know it's happening. It's what I said before. You're watching this ridiculously dangerous thing, but the parents don't find out about it. And
there's no one to react.
Yeah, there's no one to react how scary this would be in real life, and so you can enjoy that more, I think. And I like this one. I think it's not perfect, and the Paris-Japan thing, I hope you got to the bottom of that, Richard, because I'd be dying to know what the deal is with that.
IMDb trivia is the only place that mentions it, and it says it's a fan theory.
But it's so obvious. The thing is,
I will say though that, like, the Coco LaBouche is, like, being like a it feels like a sort of Devil Wears Prada kind of character, and, like, it feels like a fashion designer. She's not, but it's like she feels quite Parisian. But even then, it's like you could put her in Japan, and it's like you have one character be out of place, then the entire movie be out of place.
Yeah, I'm just stuck with, like, why did they change it from Japan to Paris?
It's someone somewhere along the way said Paris is more marketable.
I don't think it would be now, would it?
Because also they encounter a bidet, which is, like, a famously, I mean, the word is French, I'll give you that, but, like, that, like, the fancy toilets are such a Japanese thing. Like, anything where they go to Japan, they talk about how fancy the toilet is, and they do it in this. They're like, this is the only one where I've actually seen it in France, despite the fact that bidets are technically French.
Very strange stuff. But we're introduced to Kimi and Kira, who is
marking this our second franchise, which features a character named Kira in a film that probably should take place in Tokyo after the American Death Note.
Yeah. And our second franchise in which a surprisingly young protagonist pilots an Ava to find their mommy after Neon Genesis Evangelion. I think that This is a lot of fun, this one, I think. And aside from issues which plague every movie, I think that this feels a lot more in line with the vision of the show. I feel like Jermaine, what's his name? He would have no Paul Jermaine?
Yeah.
Yeah, he would have probably approved of this one a bit more. So yeah. I like this one. I think it's sweet.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just generally like a better movie. Again, I saw this one in the cinema, and this one I remembered a lot clearly. Like I remembered the Reptar Ava and stuff. Some negative reviews mentioned that it's inappropriate for a children's film to tip its hat to R-rated movies like The Godfather and A Few Good Men. Which is funny, but interestingly, so the Coco LaBouche and her henchmen, in the entire Rugrats franchise, they're the first villains.
Oh, whatever. There's been like the big baby from that one where Tommy gets bullied by a big baby.
There's antagonistic forces, and like there's like the wolf in the first one, but there's no like explicit human villains who actually, have dastardly plans up until this point. And the show had been on for like 9 years at this point.
What about the one where Chucky thinks he's dreaming about Tommy and Tommy turns around, he's got a big nose and goes, I'm not Tommy! You're telling me that's not a villain?
Yes, I am. So this was the original voice of Chucky. This was her final movie role, Christine Kavanagh. She retired from acting in 2003 after being diagnosed with chronic myelogenous leukemia and was replaced by Nancy Cartwright, the voice of Bart Simpson, starting with Rugrats Go Wild and the rest of the Rugrats, the series. But interestingly, so she retired in 2003 due to being diagnosed, but passed away in 2014.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
She could have voiced Chucky in all of these things.
So yeah, anything else you want to say, or should I move on to some more loving IMDb trivia?
The one I anticipated to be the one that we talk about the most because it's the only good one. I feel like that's always the way we always say that. It's the ones we have the least, the ones we like are the ones we have the least to say about. I will say it's not perfect. There's a needle drop of Who Let the Dogs Out that feels very 2000.
Like popularized that song. Like this.
You're joking.
Yeah, no, the song wasn't written for the film, but it's very much like the only reason you've heard that song is because of Rugrats in Paris.
Wow, interesting.
I mean, like All Star by Smash Mouth. I guess it's probably kind of similar to All Star to Shrek, kind of thing, where it's like it wasn't written for Shrek. It's not, and it was for Mystery Men actually.
Right.
But it's like the reason it's still a thing to this day is because of its use in Shrek.
Okay.
Did you just try and turn your light on and the bulb blew? Yeah.
No, it's just the faulty wiring in the house.
Damn. Yeah, did you want to talk about the music? Because I fucking... All three of these movies, all three of the Rugrats movies kind of flirt with the idea of being musicals. And the music just fucking sucks in all of them.
Okay, I'm glad you brought this up. So... all three Rugrats movies have this thing where, like, the music in it will either be, like, piss poor original tracks. Like I'm talking like Land Before Time bad original songs. Or they'll jukebox musical it and have like slightly altered versions
one way or
of
another
yeah. And both tactics, I think, don't work at all. Like, either have it all be a jukebox musical, which would be kind of interesting, I guess, or have it be original songs, or just don't, because they're clearly not prepared to write good tracks for these movies. I'd say the best song in the series is the song in the infant ward in the hospital in the first movie, where all the newborn babies sing like, "This world is something new to me." That's the closest it gets to like, oh, they're making it a musical. And then in this one you get like the Cyndi Lauper song, which isn't even sung diegetically, like it's just playing in the background, and you get them singing songs in the background. It happens in Go Wild as well. And what I think is wrong with it is it feels half-assed, but it also feels like a betrayal of the tone of Rugrats. And there's a scene in the Go Wild where Spike is swimming in the ocean to try and save the day, grab a flotation device to save the day. And the music is like this, orchestral, quote unquote, like swelling of, and it's epic. And it's like, this should so clearly be the approach taken to all the music. I don't think it should be, chaos is happening while you're listening to yo, yippee, yay. Like, it doesn't fit, and it ages the movie. And I think that it just, I wish there was more original music, especially because the Rugrats music is like kind of iconic in and of itself. And like the TV show. The TV show score is like all a cappella, like ba-bum, that sort of thing. And that's not done in the movies at all, I don't think.
Yeah. I'd be remiss
Bubble,
also
bubble.
to mention, because I know, like my mum listens to this episode, because she, obviously took me to go see the first two movies, that she'll text me and be like, can't believe you didn't mention this, as when I was, very young, Rugrats is on here.
Okay.
The show, the title of the episode would come up, and I would go, "What's it say?" And someone would have to like run into the room and read it out to me, or I'd be so pissed off.
You've told this story before. That's really interesting. I can't remember when you told the story before.
It wasn't for a while, but I mean, it was Rugrats was specifically the show that it happened with. I vaguely want to say that it also happened with Thomas the Tank Engine. But there you go. So that's
nice.
I once couldn't read.
Put that on the IMDb trivia, I reckon. Richard, you were once no better than the Rugrats themselves. This thing that you hate about them.
So here's some dumb IMDb. Dion Kwan is legally blind. She has never seen what her character Kimmy looks like.
Oh, the voice actress.
The voice actress who plays Kimmy.
Ah, right.
I don't know. It's just a funny thing to point out. Like, they're like, oh, she's blind. It's like, that means she has no idea what her character looks like.
A blind voice actress. I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, just, I don't know. It feels like it didn't need to be said.
Yeah, it's like rubbing salt on the wound.
Yeah. Paramount and Nickelodeon's movies' first sequel to one of their movies, in this case, the Rugrats movie, and it was the only sequel until Rugrats Go Wild. This made Rugrats the only Nicktoon to have more than one movie adaptation until SpongeBob SquarePants with the SpongeBob movie Sponge Out of Water.
Cool. Very true. I cannot consciously deny any of the things said in that sentence.
I feel like I wrote that down because it was wrong. I don't know, I can't remember. And this was the last Rugrats movie released in November.
Wow! Who found that? How many people found that interesting?
I didn't write it down. But anyway, moving on to now switching IPs to the Wild Thornberrys. And don't worry, we'll be seeing our little Rugrat friends in just a moment. But the Wild Thornberrys movie came out in 2002. This was directed by Kathy Malkassian, who we had mentioned before in that unintelligible piece of IMDb trivia, and Jeff McGrath. This has 80% on Rotten Tomatoes, so the highest rated film we're talking about today. It's also the only one nominated for an Oscar. Did you know that?
What for?
It had a song in it called Father and Daughter by Paul Simon, which was nominated for Best Original Song.
I was wondering if that was from the Wild Thornberrys movie. That's so funny.
Yeah. It lost to Lose Yourself by Eminem.
And that's the only time that Wild Thornberrys was ever put in competition with Eminem.
Well, you'd think, but...
Yeah.
Yeah, what is this movie about?
So the Wild Thornberrys, they're a family that make a nature show together.
Yeah, we explained it at the start when I recited.
That's true. Yeah. And this one, Eliza is like somewhat responsible for a cheetah cub getting kidnapped by poachers. And then this makes lets the cat out of the bag that she's often sneaking out to hang out with animals. So the grandmumsy, who's Nigel Thornberry's mother, insists she goes to an English boarding school where the film stops being as interesting as it was up until this point for about 20 minutes where she's having to survive she's at home on the savannah, but put her in a distinguished boarding school and she doesn't know how to do anything. But she has a dream that the shaman who originally granted her the power to speak to animals, she has a dream that he tells her that she needs to go back to Africa to save Tally, who's the name of this cheetah cub. And so she sneaks her way back into Africa, where she meets two husband and wife team who are presumably also like nature documentarians, and she like runs into them a couple of times while trying to find this cub. She eventually finds out that they are the poachers that kidnapped the cub, and their plan is to electrocute a bunch of elephants who are all gathering in one area for an eclipse. And Eliza saves the day, and in doing so, when the bad guy, played brilliantly, I thought, by Rupert Everett in a pre Prince Charming role. Was it pre? Yeah, it would have been pre. She has to reveal that the reason she knows all the stuff she knows is that because she can talk to animals, which lets Debbie in on the secret, and at the end of the movie she gets her powers back. And yeah, that's the movie. Is that a good summation of the movie? She saves the day, saves the elephants, gets her powers back.
Gets
Debbie
the crown,
maybe
saves the town, and Mr. Krabs.
Yeah. That's it. Criminally underuses Nigel Thornberry, I thought.
Yeah, he actually doesn't say smashing the entire film.
Wow. This movie and Go Wild really shines a light on not only how brilliant of a voice actor Tim Curry can be, but how much of a gift Nigel Thornberry as a character is.
Yeah.
I think it's such a perfect marriage of performance and design and character, like personality, and I love how much oomph Tim Curry puts into every single delivery, which like the animation then has to follow. Like the line will be like, "Oh, get photo of this, Marianne." I'll be like, "Get a photo of this, Marianne," and like the animation has to follow those little ticks that he does, and it's so brilliant. And I just really love Nigel Thornberry after watching these last two movies. Thought it's so great. And I think so 80% on Rotten Tomatoes. I think I could pretty comfortably say this is the best movie of the four.
Yeah,
I guess it has similar problems to the Rugrats in that it feels like it needs to be a needle drop movie, but the needle drop songs aren't as like. I think the problem with the Rugrats ones is like I've heard these songs, like these are famous songs, whereas the Wild Thornberrys one feels more like actually picked for them, and I mean one was written for the movie. Yeah. So yeah. What do you think of this?
Yeah, it's good. I think I'm pretty sure I'd seen it before. I probably saw this one on TV. I think
I hadn't seen it before.
Oh, yeah, interesting.
I hadn't seen it before, and then in Go Wild, when Eliza just casually mentions to Debbie that she can speak to animals, I remember being like, "What the fuck?" as a 10-year-old.
Yeah, there's one season made after the movie where Debbie knows about Eliza's power.
Ah, okay.
And that was the end of the show. But yeah, the show ends because the foundation, who's like in charge of their show, requests that Shane G, a teenage rocker, joins the Thornberrys. And so they're in like Alaska for most of it. And then both Debbie and Eliza fall in love with Shane, but then turns out Shane falls for Eliza and they like share a kiss, and that's the end of the series. Interesting, weird end to the series.
That is a weird end to the Wild Thornberrys.
Yeah, he's voiced by the less problematic Masterton brother, Christopher, who's Francis from
Malcolm in the Middle.
Wild Thornberrys, there's not as much in terms of like the production. It's the 11th Nicktoon, interestingly, and it was part of the pitch was Nickelodeon was looking for shows that didn't solely focus on the children. So this one had more of a focus on the family and the parents than the Nicktoons up until that point, which is interesting.
I liked the show a bit. I don't think I liked it as much as Rugrats, but maybe it just came out at the wrong time. But I'll say this, in terms of the movies, the high octane adventure mode kind of suits Wild Thornberrys a lot better than it suits Rugrats. Like I'm not crippled with panic watching the babies try and outrun a wolf, whereas I am crippled with panic watching that, whereas watching like Eliza Thornberry, who can talk to animals and often gets involved in these sorts of situations, I think it makes a lot more sense to give this one sort of a grandiose story than it does to give Rugrats a grandiose story.
Yeah. Because what's your like relationship with the Wild Thornberrys TV show? Were you a big fan?
No, I didn't really watch it. No, I did watch it. I feel like it wasn't like appointment viewing, I guess, but I was aware of it and it was on, and I'd catch it sometimes. I don't know why, because I quite like the concept.
Yeah, I watched it quite a bit. I think I remember there was an episode where they go to Rotorua.
Yes, I remember that episode as well.
And they take place in like a hui, and Eliza falls for a young Māori boy.
I'm not sure if that episode handles everything in the best possible way. I think it's
from memory, because also a Rocket Power, there was an episode where
another Klasky Csupo.
Yeah, they had a guy come in who was like a surfer from New Zealand. He's like, "G'day, lads! I just came here from New Zealand. I was just took a break from putting shrimp on the barbie," and he's got like the Australian flag on his board. And
how do you get it that wrong?
Yeah,
how do you get it that?
But
wrong?
then they also did. There was a Rocket Power TV film called Race Across New Zealand, which is where they travel to New Zealand to participate in the Junior Waikakamukau Games, which is not a real place.
That's offensive.
Well, so it is like the idea of because Waikakamukau, it obviously is a Y kick a moo cow. It also, like due to the consonants and vowels, it sounds like a Māori word. But it has a Wikipedia page. Apparently, it's a generic name for a small rural town or locality in New Zealand, and Kiwis apparently use the name as a placeholder for any town. So it is one of those like kind of done their
Timbuktu.
Research. Yeah, which Timbuktu, another place, didn't really realize it wasn't a real place. It actually, Timbuktu is a real place, though. Also, enough about Rocket Power. Just jumping back to Wild Thornberrys as well. Some people might be sitting there at home fuming listening to this that we haven't covered something called The Origins of Donnie.
I did look this up last night,
which was the first 4 episodes of season 4, which was only 6 episodes long. The 6th episode actually is the Māori one, and the 5th episode guest starred Jane Goodall. So.
I've seen that one.
I remember that one, yeah. It was like a tele movie. It was 4 episodes, and it was kind of like a television event. We don't count it as a movie. Although apparently the just on movies versus TV movies, apparently that Race Across New Zealand by Rocket Power is rumored to have been at one point considered for theatrical release because it does the kind of like shading and stuff that we mentioned. It makes the movies look more cinematic. So it's like clearly had a higher budget, I guess. Yeah, do you have anything else you want to say about the Wild Thornberrys movie? I
think that were you caught off guard by how powerful Rupert Everett's performance was in this as the villain?
Didn't notice it was him.
Oh, well, he's the blonde poacher guy. Right. I just thought like while the Rugrats movie had these like kind of like flashes of like you wouldn't get this in the TV show. I really felt
couldn't say this these days.
I really felt the power of the Wild Thornberrys movie when this character was threatening to throw Debbie off a cliff and he's in the middle of like a lightning storm and he's like, "Where did you get your information from?" It felt like he was taking the movie too seriously compared to all the other voice actors, and I think that results in something feeling quite powerful.
Except for Tim Curry, obviously.
Yeah, of course. Sorry. Yes.
Interesting. Like Reggie and Thunder, 2 characters in this film, probably animals. I don't remember them, but they're voiced by Roger L. Jackson, who's the voice of Ghostface.
Reggie was the gorilla and Thunder was the horse.
Oh yeah, he's also the voice of Mojo Jojo. So probably more his connections to that got him the gig than his work as Ghostface.
Nice.
So this is, you got some more Imdb trivia here.
Mm-hmm.
This is the only movie from Paramount Pictures and Nickelodeon to feature a character who turned out to be the main villain of the movie. This didn't happen again until Dora and the Lost City of Gold, released 17 years later in 2019.
That means someone added that in 2019. So what are they saying? That the villain is like a twist reveal?
I guess, yeah.
Because that is, I did think that was quite dark for a Nicktoon movie.
That was Marianne Thornberry. Imagine that.
Oh, right. That'd be cool. And there is not only is Grand Mumsy in it, but also Nigel's dad, also voiced by Tim Curry, and I very much enjoyed.
And this is Kevin Michael Richardson's first and only time starring in an animated feature film from Paramount and Nickelodeon until the SpongeBob movie Sponge Out of Water, released 13 years later.
Wow, his only time.
Apart from this other time. And also, he's in fucking Rugrats in Paris. So it's not even true.
It's also like, I'm sure we've talked about this before because dumb IMDb trivia is rife with it, but like, it's not it's not interesting if if it's the first time someone has done this very specific thing with all these qualifiers attached to it. This is the first time we've covered an animated franchise that is two separate franchises clashed together that were based on TV shows that star Kevin Michael Richardson.
So moving on to the fourth and final film we're here to talk about, Rugrats Go Wild.
Rugrats Gone Wild.
This came out in 2003, directed by Norton Virgin and John Ing. What does this have on Rotten Tomatoes?
Like names from another universe, man. Like, I reckon this will have like 29% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's not very good.
What's it about?
So the characters are all ready to go on the Rugrats. The parents and the Rugrats are all ready to go with their dog on Lipschitz cruise. Lipschitz, as fans of the show will know, is the alternative medicine doctor, that baby doctor that Dee Dee Pickles swears by.
Also, I'll just say, can I just say about Lipschitz? The idea of Lipschitz shouldn't be a character you ever see.
Sure, yeah, because you see him in, or at least they meet him in this.
Yeah, but he's seen occasionally in the series, but the way he's talked about feels like he should be one of these famously just off-screen characters.
Yeah. I like how it also implies that Dee Dee would probably be pretty anti-vax, I think. Because,
it depends on what Lipschitz says.
Well, it's a holistic. The hospital that Dill is born in is a holistic, alternative medicine hospital where you can get born on a farm in a farm room or something like that. And I was like, this has a different tone in 2022. But anyway, they get to this cruise, and then oh my god, it's leaving without them, and it turns out Stu Pickles assumed that 15 people in his party would be okay with instead of going on a cruise, going on a little tugboat that is too small for any more than 4 people. And so they go on this tugboat instead, and they're trying to catch up to the cruise, and everyone's mad at Stu. And then there's a typhoon or something, and the boat crashes. We get a harrowing sequence where several babies are about to get swept out to sea. But eventually they shipwreck on a deserted island,
which Wikipedia says is possibly in Polynesia.
Okay, cool. And on this island, surprise, surprise, are the Wild Thornberrys, and it's split up into various camps who are there filming, trying to find a cloudy leopard or something is the animal that they're trying to film.
Clouded leopard.
It's also established that Nigel Thornberry is Tommy Pickles' hero, and we get probably the best scene.
Nigel Strawberry.
Yeah, we get the best scene in the whole movie, which is the opening where he's pretending to be Nigel Thornberry, and I thought that was very charming and a very cute way to melt the universes together, and it promises a height that we do not reach again. The movie basically decides which of these two Rugrats or Thornberry's characters would be the funniest to pair together for most of the movie. So you get Angelica and Deborah, Eliza's bratty older sister. or Debbie, sorry, they hang out because the movie seems very keen to shine a light on the fact that they're essentially the same character. And Donnie and who's the we found him, the wild boy, him
The
and
wildest
Chucky,
of the Thornberrys.
him and Chucky have an altercation, and Nigel finds the rest of the babies after falling off a cliff and knocking his head, causing him to believe that he is 3 years old himself. And what I thought was an interesting consistency with Rugrats canon, because there is an episode where Stu falls off the roof and bumps his head and believes he is a baby and can understand the babies for an episode. And I just
Paul
think it's
Germain would
interesting.
not have been happy about that.
I think it's an interesting kind of consistency with your canon to be like, in this universe, if you bump your head, you can understand babies.
It is actually really about the creation of Rugrats as well. That it seems like there was debate, and you can kind of see this in early episodes apparently, that whether like can the babies understand each other and the adults are just hearing it as baby talk, or can the babies actually speak English and are hiding it from the parents? And this, I think, was an argument. So there's some episodes where they'll wait for the adults to leave the room to start talking, and there's some where they'll be talking and the parents will be like goo goo gaga, like.
Well, I feel like this one definitively lands on their speaking baby talk.
Yeah. I think it was well established by this point. It's just an interesting thing that I think the creators sort of argued about and pulled the show in different directions.
Yeah. Marianne, who's the Mrs. Thornberry, she meets up with the rest of the parents. And finally, Eliza Thornberry, the main character of the Wild Thornberrys, who has maybe the least play out of any of the main characters in this movie. She finds Spike, who is now, because he's a dog, she can understand him. And he's voiced by Bruce Willis in Bruce Willis's final role before his passing sometime. That's a joke about how Bruce Willis doesn't try when he's acting and things. My point is that he gives a pretty good performance, a pretty good voice performance in this, that it feels bizarre to see him do now that he has given up on entertaining anyone with his acting.
Yeah, I mean, what did he do after, like, yeah, he did Sin City, Lucky Number 11. Like very much moved into, and Live Free or Die Hard was only a few years later. That like very much moved into his like grumpy, I'm over this kind of thing. Yeah, this was like his last really energetic performance. He sings in it as well, which yeah,
he would have loved that.
Yeah, he had a music career, and it's one of those things where it's like I feel like if you spoke to Bruce Willis and asked him about his like if you were tasked with interviewing Bruce Willis and you asked him about his music career, he would light up.
Yeah. So he sings a song with the Clouded Leopard about
who's voiced by Chrissy Hind, the lead singer of the Pretenders.
Oh, there you go. And they sing a song about how she's just a cat and he hates cats basically, and then she tries to go and eat the fucking babies. And Spike is kind of made over in terms of animation. When he is talking, he becomes a more like kind of classical animated character. And I thought it was an interesting, because Wild Thornberrys is exclusively from Eliza's perspective, where the animals speak English and move like kind of cartoon characters. And I thought this was an interesting way to address that. Like, this is how Eliza is perceiving Spike, I guess. And the climax of the movie takes place where they've worked out where the babies are, but they're in a submarine that has ran out of power that's on the bottom of this little lagoon.
It's running out of oxygen.
Nigel Thornberry's in there and he can talk to them. And you get maybe one of, like, I said the first one was dark. The climax of this movie is this very somber, yet somehow paradoxically not really in touch with how truly morbid the scene is, where Nigel Thornberry is in a submarine with about 7 or 8 babies. He's the only one that knows they're all going to die, and he quietly starts doing a shadow puppet play for them. And it's so like, oh my god.
Yeah.
It's like you're one scene away from him like tucking them in as they fall asleep from lack of oxygen and be like, don't worry, we'll get you up to your parents soon. And it's so, again, that doesn't happen in the movie, but it gets so close to grappling with probably the most depressing scene I can think of in any movie, right?
Yeah.
But they end up getting out, and it's all happy days, and the movie acts like it didn't. I guess the Rugrats movies, they construct everything so that it's like, they're going to be okay. And because that, we can take this to some very, very scary places. But if you remove that knowledge, it's this really like fucked up, like kind of way to tell a story about babies. It's already fucked up that there's a Rugrats movie about them getting shipwrecked. I hate how like unrealistic that is. And I think it's funny for the parent story is funny, but like the fact that the babies just wander off into the jungle by themselves is like terrifying. And I think that you could easily combine these two IPs without it involving a shipwreck and all that sort of thing, and then roll credits, and one of the last songs in the credits is this relatively serious power or pop ballad by E.G. Daly, who's the voice of Tommy Pickles, and it just sounds like Tommy Pickles is singing a song, but like the song that Tommy Pickles would never sing. It's so funny.
Oh, yeah.
It's called what's the song called? It's called like Changing Faces or something.
Changing Faces, yeah.
Yeah. Go listen to it if you want to hear what sounds like Tommy Pickles being like, and we're changing faces. Like it's like it's a song that takes itself seriously, but she just sounds like Tommy Pickles.
Oh, yeah. It is, again, the music is strange. Bruce Willis does a cover of Lust for Life by Iggy Pop in the credits. When Iggy Pop sings in the first film, the song that Debbie and Angelica bond over loving is Should I Stay or Should I Go by The Clash, which is like a weird scene.
Again, and like, why are they singing that? Like, this is Rugrats. They should be singing like the Cynthia theme. You know what I mean? Like, right. Rugrats is usually so good at pulling from its own like fictional mythology with Reptar and stuff like that. It's so weird. It's so
and
weird.
Then also American Hi-Fi does a cover of Message in a Bottle, which I didn't realize was American Hi-Fi, who was a one-hit wonder who had a song called Flavor of the Week, which I fucking love that song. So that's interesting.
So what do you think of this one?
It's bad. Yeah, it's bad. It is funny that it's like, because I'd never, so this is one of the other one I hadn't seen, which I get, like, had I grown out of Rugrats by this point? Like,
No, I remember my dad.
You hadn't, I remember.
Well, if you were the same age, I guess you're a little older than me, but yeah. I remember in 2003, I was playing in my backyard and my mum was out on the front porch and my dad got home from work and I heard him say to my mum, "Hey, I was thinking about taking Alex to see Finding Nemo tonight." Because he was on like this, he was having this phase where he was like taking the kids out on individual dad dates, So I say that like it didn't last. My dad took me to plenty of movies with that, but it was like specifically, I'm going to take Alex and not the other kids, and it'll be our thing. And I heard him say it and I was pretending to not hear. And then I wandered over and I looked at him, I said, "Dad, can we go see Rugrats Go Wild instead?" And I wanted to like surprise him that I'd heard him, and he looked a little shocked and then he said, "No, we're going to see Finding Nemo." And thank God he took me to see Finding Nemo.
Oh, that's great. It is funny. So, like, the promotion of this film, the poster's quite fun of the main casts of both. The babies are all up a tree, and all of the Thornberry family except Marianne are like at the bottom looking up at them.
It's because she's the worst Thornberry. She's the straight man, so no one knows even what to do with her.
But it's funny, on the poster it has like a paw print that says, "And Spike speaks," with the voice of Bruce Willis. Like, this was very heavily in the marketing.
I remember.
I didn't know he voiced him in the film. I must have known at some point, kind of thing. But then when he started talking in the film, I was like, whose voice is that?
So, years ago, I don't even remember what podcast it was, but I was doing a riff about celebrity voices, and I was like, imagine if this character, whatever franchise was from, was voiced by, and I drew a blank trying to think of who a quintessential voice actor would be, and then I went Bruce Willis because I remembered him playing Spike in Rugrats Go Wild, and then I couldn't do a Bruce Willis impression.
And he also voices the baby in Look Who's Talking as well, which is like another.
That's true. So our second Bruce Willis
voicing a
franchise,
character who shouldn't be able to talk.
and babies are around. It's our second baby franchise where Bruce Willis voices one of the characters who shouldn't be able to speak.
Yeah, one of the posters is just like Spike standing upright with his arms folded, and it says, "What's up, dog?" And then it says, "Spike speaks." 6/13/03. Like literally the tagline for this film was "Spike speaks" or "Spike speaks soon."
I love that "What's up, dog?" as if that's like something Bruce Willis would say.
Yeah. But yeah, interestingly, there's a post that says "What's up, dog?" with the tagline "Spike speaks soon," but the title is not Rugrats Go Wild. It's The Rugrats Meet the Wild Thornberrys, which was, I guess, the original title for this film. Although, interestingly, it says The Rugrats Meet the Wild Thornberrys is the logo, but the website, the URL at the bottom of it says Rugrats Go Wild. So it might have just been like we need to put, we only have a Rugrats character on this poster, so we have to put the Wild Thornberrys name on here.
Well, it does do Wild Thornberrys dirty by not having their full title in the title.
There is the original sort of teaser for this is like it zooms in. It's like almost, I think it's 3D animated, but it looks like live action kind of thing, or it might be live action. And it's like goes into like a counselor's office, and you hear like, I just feel like nobody understands me. You know what I mean? And then it zooms in and slowly like reveals. Oh, it's Spike talking. And he's talking to Eliza. And then the title comes on, Rugrats Meet the Wild Thornberrys. So yeah, I mean that's a fun little thing. The other and one interesting thing about this film is that this was released in odorama, or smell-o-vision as it's sometimes called, or aromascope.
You can smell the baby's shitty diapers.
Yeah. So smell-o-vision is like a thing that was happened in like the 60s, but John Waters actually like coined the term odorama for his film Polyester. And they said like, yeah, it's like an homage to John Waters' Polyester, and the studio had let the copyright for odorama like slip, and so they were like, the filmmaker was like, oh yeah, it's an homage to John Waters, and John Waters said, yeah, check would have been a nice homage. Because like he didn't get any money for it, they just like stole the term. But unlike, you remember when the last film we covered that was released in aromascope was Spike Is All the Time in the World, which was actually kind of hard to find what the actual scents were. This one you can actually buy from 2003 the scratch and sniff cards on eBay for $19. Unopened, but these were released at like Burger King and Blockbuster. You got the card there, and it was like, take this card with you when you go see Rugrats Go Wild. And so yeah, it says, bring the scratch and sniff card with you when you go see Rugrats Go Wild, starting in theaters June 13th. Step 1, during the movie, you'll see big red numbers flashing in the corner of the screen. Step 2, find the glow-in-the-dark number on your card and scratch the circle next to it. Step 3, when the number on the screen turns green, smell the circle on your card. And
it's a lot, very involved.
Scratch and sniff scents are synthetic and non-allergenic, and it's got so there's 6 scents in it. So number 1 is strawberries, number 2 is peanut butter, number 3 is flowers, number 4 is feet, presumably the scene where Dill is
just licks away Phil's feet.
Yeah, and 5 is a root beer float, and 6 is fish.
Imagine being in that cinema. You've taken your kid, you're exhausted. You take your kid to some movie, to get them to shut up for a little bit.
They've got a cold.
And then, and then all of a sudden you hear a scratching sound, and there's these strange symbols in the movie, and then all of a sudden the entire cinema just smells like feet.
Yeah. In Polyester, there was like the 10 smells were roses, flatulence or natural ass, model airplane glue, pizza, gasoline, skunk, natural gas, new car smell, dirty shoes, and air freshener. And John Waters has commented that he finds it funny that the audience is paid to smell shit. But apparently the DVD release of the film changed the smell of glue to the smell of political correctness.
I get it. I get it.
That's classic John Waters for you. Interestingly, about so this actually started as a TV thing, but it was they screened it and it got shelved and remade into a feature film. Interestingly, about this as well, that Lil sort of mentions she's going to turn into a vegetarian, and it's sort of treated as a joke in the film, but then for the rest of the series, including the sequel series, all grown up, Lil's a vegetarian.
Interesting that she how old are they and all grown up? Like 12?
Yeah, 12.
So she's still a vegetarian then. That's interesting.
Yeah.
She made this decision when she was 2 years old and
stranded on a desert island.
Yeah. I hate that, eh?
Yeah.
Like just the reality rubber band being stretched so far that this series, which is supposed to be about truly supposed to be about not only slice of life, but how when we're babies we see the whole world, even the ordinary, as extraordinary, right? And then putting those babies in an actually extraordinary situation is so stupid and misses the point entirely.
Yeah. Stupid babies.
Big dumb babies.
So, speaking of dumb, I've got some dumb Imdb trivia, and I hope you're ready to hear very similar pieces of trivia over and over again.
I have.
So, this is the first animated sequel to be rated PG by the MPAA, unlike the previous installments, which were rated G. It is also the only one of the 2000s to do so. Now, remember that phrase. This is the first animated sequel produced in a 2.35 to 1 aspect ratio, unlike the previous installments, which were produced in a 1.85 to 1 aspect ratio. It is also the only one of the 2000s to do so.
Oh, who cares?
The first animated follow-up movie released in June, unlike the previous installments, which were released in November, as the only one of the 2000s to do so.
I remember the other ones were released in November, because it was in the other dumb IMDb trivia.
The only animated sequel produced in a 2.35 to 1 aspect ratio, unlike the previous installments, which were produced in a 1.85 to 1 aspect ratio, to be released on VHS.
Oh, and how many others in the 2000s had that happen?
Well, no, that's actually replaced in the 2000s. So this is actually the only animated sequel produced. This is the only animated follow-up movie to be released in June, unlike the previous installments, which were released in November, to be released on VHS.
Wow!
So I with what the trivia is actually saying is that this is the only animated film released in June where the previous films were released in November that was released on VHS, which is insane. It's that insanely specific thing. It's not like a all
these hoops it's jumping through to be an interesting quote-unquote piece of trivia.
This is the only animated franchise that originated in 1.85 to 1 to have a 2.35 to 1 aspect ratio for its third movie until Despicable Me 3.
How many more of these are there?
One. and then I have the actual interesting piece of trivia I teased earlier.
Okay.
The fifth theatrically released traditionally animated movie of the 2000s to be produced at a 2.35 to 1 aspect ratio after Titan AE, Atlantis the Lost Empire, Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron, and the Wild Thornberrys movie. Someone loves their fucking aspect ratios. But yeah, very actually genuinely interesting fact. This is only the second theatrically released animated third film in a series.
Say it again.
This is, or they call it a triquel on the piece of trivia. This is the second theatrically released animated triquel.
Right. So what does that mean?
So this predates Cars 3, Toy Story 3, Despicable Me 3. There was no other.
Shrek 3? Yeah,
Shrek 3. What would you guess was the first theatrically animated triquel?
Oh, it wouldn't be would it be like All Dogs Go to Heaven or something like that?
There's only two of those.
No. Would it be...
I'll give you a clue. You'll never get it.
Okay.
It's the Pokemon 3, the movie, Spell of the Unknown.
I could have got that. I'll never. I thought you were gonna say it was like some like obscure like Russian animated series from like the 1970s that I've never heard of.
Yeah, no, but it is interesting now because it's like there's a handful of animated.
Well, there's tons now.
Yeah. But that like this was, and what an odd distinction for Pokemon and Rugrats to go wild.
And also doesn't even count because like you can say this is a third part of a trilogy, but you need an ancillary fourth movie to understand one line of dialogue in this movie.
It is very treated as like the Rugrats trilogy. There is, in fact, next week, there's a Blu-ray. The first Blu-ray release of these films is like the Rugrats trilogy is coming out. So
I think that's just not true. You need.
No, it is.
You need.
You can look online. And
I don't consider this a trilogy.
I don't think the Blu-ray's coming out.
You need to watch the Wild Thornberrys movie, and as part of this whole package. I mean, imagine if you'd never heard of any of these characters in these movies with your only introduction to them. It'd be fucking weird, and you'd be like, "Why am I watching a movie trilogy about babies nearly dying constantly?" But you'd need to know something about Wild Thornberrys before you watch this one. I'm mad, Richard.
All right, so that is the 4 films in the Wild Thornberry Rats.
Very cool. There was something you mentioned to me that you were like, we'll talk about it, and we haven't talked about it.
Do you want to talk about it?
I don't know, do you?
Well, okay, here's the question. I had this thought.
Wait, is this problematic corner? Do we want to play the theme
corner,
song?
but just like for myself.
For us, because we're about to be problematic?
Ooh, I bet this didn't age well. Let's get a laugh at someone else's expense. I have to warn you, this might get obscene. This the problematic corner where ain't nothing PC.
Well, I just think it's an interesting like it was more of like a I don't remember this about the Wild Thornberrys, and I was asking if you did. So Debbie Thornberry, the older sister of Eliza.
Yeah.
I asked you, canonically, is she hot? Now I'm not saying
I don't know.
The thing is, I'm not saying do you find the character attractive? Or like the great fucking making me bring it up and be like, I don't know.
I don't know. I do have something to say.
Well, because I was trying to remember because the thing is that it's like she's treated as a very vain character who's concerned about her appearance and has a lot of sort of like hot popular girl kind of traits as like the trope, but she also, and I was wondering if this is actually a thing in the show because I think it's more interesting that like when people like she should have no social skills,
right?
Because like she just travels with her family and they live with a monkey and like a feral boy, and it's like and so I was like, I try to remember in the Wild Thornberrys when they encounter hot locals, are they attracted to Debbie, or are they just like, who's this fucking weird?
I mean, she kind of
feral girl.
She kind of shacks up with an African native in the Wild Thornberrys movie. Named Boko, but that isn't treated as explicitly like they're sexually attracted to each other. It's maybe like a touch of that, but not really. She talks about like hot guys and stuff. Here's what I have to say on this, Richard. And I haven't watched enough Wild Thornberrys to know if she's canonically hot. What I do think is interesting is that you've got this character who's 16, 17.
She's 16.
Right, well, thank God we got that out of the way.
No wiggle room.
Someone at Klasky Csupo is enjoying animating her. Like that's the problematic part if there is one. Like someone is taking their time to draw every curve and every she's
not particularly like. She's no Jessica Rabbit.
Of course not. Okay, pick the most extreme example. Yeah. I still think she is drawn very, very buxom, very, I don't know. And like, who am I to say if it's a problem or not? I'm just saying that it's...
I'm just asking questions.
Someone's enjoying drawing Debbie Thornberry.
Well, someone probably just loved their job.
All right, okay.
All right, pivot.
Like there's there's shots like, nah, forget it. I just don't know if it's worth getting into. I was taking photos and sending them to my flatmate because I was like, why would you draw this hot character this? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like hop on the Discord. Like the question isn't, do you think Debbie Thornberry is hot?
I thought that was the question.
The question is, do the other characters think she's hot?
Okay.
Yeah, so
I'd ask the same thing about Nigel Thornberry. Do the other characters think Nigel Thornberry's hot?
Yeah. Yeah, please let us know on the Discord. Not do you find Debbie Thornberry hot?
I don't want to know. I don't want to know if that's what you think.
The people who are well versed in Wild Thornberry's lore, is Debbie Thornberry supposed to be a hot character?
Thank you.
Yeah. I don't usually do this, but I've left my window open while recording, and I just hope my neighbor's listening. No, it's not. Is Debbie Thornberry hot?
Is she supposed to be hot?
All right, so time for not the newest segment we've got anymore, but a relatively new segment. Meeting of the Elders. So this is we've got a tier on the Cult Elders tier on our Patreon, which you can subscribe to, and you'll get access to a very secret channel in the Discord, where each week or each fortnight, each episode, you can tell us your thoughts on the franchise. And so we had Bliss My Spike, normally Bliss My Dog, but changed it to Spike for to
very funny,
very fun.
Still makes no sense to me why Bliss My Dog.
But joined the Cult Elders tier specifically for Rugrats / Wild Thornberrys.
Be prepared, this is the ravings of a madman, if you've heard of Rugrats before.
So I'll just get to just a couple other comments. Dan said, "Hey Siri, play that song by Kanye West and Jay-Z, Rugrats in Paris."
I'm learning how to choose the right to listen to this.
It happened!
That's very funny. Vincent said, "Just started Rugrats in Paris, and my god, what a nightmare to share a flight with these babies." Interestingly, Vincent watched the films, and that's all he said. So, Bless My Spike asked about if we were going to do the Tales of the Crib and Runaway Reptar, the extended episodes. We said no. So anyway, so the Rugrats movie, I wore out the orange VHS tape by watching it constantly as a kid. So many memorable moments with Charlotte's, well, you know what they say, Warren and Davina's look for being one of my favorite lines in cinematic history, with my quoting it constantly, often adding the most ridiculous euphemisms to finish the quote. You don't have to read this, we're going to. But as an example, well, you know what they say, Born and Davina's look for a big old donkey dick.
I can see this being hilarious as a kid.
Yeah, even now. I have dumber personal jokes or recurring jokes in my life. It's a very odd film though, with many questionable decisions and moments that are super easy to overthink. One moment in particular that always struck me as, what in the absolute fuck, is the trippy CGI sequence before Dill is born. We go into Dee Dee's mouth and see all sorts of strange things that we can only assume are existing inside of Dee Dee's uterus, and perhaps even, dare I say it, her vagina. These things include, but are not limited to, the universe. Fish.
Not limited to the universe. And then everything else he says will be within the universe.
Yeah. Fish, a frog, dolphins, a dinosaur, monkeys, atoms, atoms as well. Stonehenge and the pyramids. While I understand that the visual imagery is meant to evoke human evolution, the orchestral accompaniment of the Rugrats theme seems to imply that Rugrats as a franchise is so full of itself that the addition of another Rugrat is such a world-changing event that it can be seen as the next step in human evolution. That is,
I mean, that's a great point. That's surely what it's trying to do, is being all history has led up to this, but Dilf is a fairly passive character after this movie, so I don't know if it was all leading up to him after all.
It sounded very much like you'd said Dilf.
Dilf. I did. I was referring to Stu Pickles.
That's why I continue the franchises, that they've grown up so much they have kids, and Dill's Dilf. It's called Dilf Pickles. All right. I signed up for Cult Elders because I've always been fascinated with the scene inside of Dee Dee. Don't take that the wrong way. I just find it to be overlooked in the discussion of the film, despite how fucking weird it is. And would love to hear you guys' take on it. What symbolizes within the context of Rugrats, and what else it could possibly be trying to say. The idea that there is a dinosaur inside of Dee Dee is hilarious to me. I think it's probably a metaphor.
I do, yeah. I don't think it's of course not literal. I think it's I think maybe it's like Rugrats by that point have become such an institution that now it's going like, we are definitively adding something to the canon. We're adding a new character, and this is as big a moment as the conception of the universe, as the death of the dinosaurs, as the discovery of atoms, you know?
It is interesting though. I remember during the Yu-Gi-Oh episode we talked about like that the Yu-Gi-Oh movies kind of don't do anything that you couldn't just do on the show, or like the concepts explored in the show are bigger than the movies.
Yeah, whereas the Rugrats is the opposite problem.
But like Rugrats is like, adding a new character. I mean, aside from your babies have gone missing and stuff like that, it's like it makes sense to add a baby brother for it. Like in the movie, going to Paris is another one that it's like you go overseas and then crossing over with another IP.
Yeah,
these all make sense to be movies.
Yeah,
and so Wild Thornberrys, even just the fact that Debbie finds out, put that in your movie.
Yeah, true.
But it's like the movie's not marketed around that kind of thing. But
yeah,
and then he sort of just surmised his thoughts on in Rugrats in Paris. I grew up with this good movie, definitely a lot more sane than the original. I find the decision to open with a parody of The Godfather to be a bit too pandering to the adults. The Wild Thornberrys movie.
But it's so funny, though, hearing Angelica do the Marlon Brando voice. I think it's hilarious.
The Wild Thornberrys movie, it was alright. Go Wild, awful movie. Subpar animation. Stu's actions are deplorable, and any attempt to make him sympathetic are pathetic. I also want to call out the extended sequence of Dill licking Phil's feet as absolutely disgusting. They are babies! And the whole Smell-O-Vision thing was a tacked on gimmick.
Agreed with everything that Bliss My Spike has said.
Yeah, the Stu's thing is like, and then it's like, oh, Stu, you saved the day. And it's like, you are 100% the reason we're here, and our children should have died.
Yeah.
And finally, some interesting trivia for the first film, stuff I didn't have written down. David Bowie wrote a song for the film titled Safe, which they ultimately cut for the film for an undocumented reason. As a David Bowie fan and a Rugrats fan, I find this fascinating. The song now exists on the deluxe Heathen album. Fascinating.
Weird.
Yeah. It's like, who tells David Bowie, nah?
In your Rugrats movie.
Yeah.
One thing that's popped up quite a few times in this episode, and that I found infinitely funny, is how many like celebrities we've mentioned that I would never think of in the context of Rugrats have like these connections to Rugrats. Like Madonna and Paul Simon and David Bowie, like all have stories about that, which means that at some point these celebrities will have known what Rugrats is. Which, that's kind of funny to think that David Bowie was aware of the Rugrats and was told, hey, David, sorry, we can't actually use your song.
Your song isn't good enough for our dumb baby movie.
He's like, but I wrote it for Rugrats!
The words asshole are in the film uncensored during the On Your Mark sequence with Busta Rhymes. I don't think it was censored in any version of the film. Yeah, and Busta Rhymes voices Reptar in the first film.
And he says asshole?
Yeah, apparently. Well, I think, yeah.
What?
Yeah, apparently.
I gotta look this up.
And then Bliss My Spike said, okay, I think that's most of what I want to say. Scotty Doesn't Know said, I actually saw the first film in the theaters for my little brother's birthday. I'm 4 years older, but our birthdays are only one day apart, so we always had to do joint birthdays. I got him back the following year as it was my turn to choose, so we went to go see Big Daddy. Boy, I sure showed him. I don't actually remember much of the Rugrats film, but I do remember this being the first time I noticed that the movie versions of animated TV shows look noticeably different, which I've always found really distracting. The only other truly fond memory I have of Rugrats is that my mates in high school had a metal band which had a song with the lyrics Reptar, Lizard, King, Deathbringer, and a shoe.
Very funny. Very random.
Yeah, there's mentioning the thing about how it looks different. It is. I do find it distracting. I adjust to it, but it's like every time, even if this is my fourth movie I'm watching, the opening scene, I'm always like, damn, look at that animation. And especially if you're seeing it in the cinema as well. It's like the Simpsons movie did it as well.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's clean. I looked up, so Busta Rhymes, when they're like in the Reptar wagon and it's driving throughout the city and they nearly die and get hit by trucks and stuff. Busta Rhymes' song is playing there. I don't think he's voicing Reptar.
He does voice Reptar.
Oh, okay. Well, I
Like,
think he says
separately, he does.
asshole.
Yeah.
He says asshole in the lyrics of the
Right.
song, not just. There's not just a scene where
Where
they're
Reptile goes,
playing
asshole.
they're playing with the toy. Yeah.
So that is meeting adjourned. If you want to have your thoughts read out at some point on a future podcast, feel free to join the Cult Elders tier. So we are now at our last couple of segments, the first of which is Continue the Franchise. As I mentioned before, the Rugrats did have a somewhat of a continuation. They had a show that ran for 4 episodes called Preschool Days. Days spelled D-A-Z-E. That was like Susie and Angelica going to preschool.
They'd already done the They're All Grown Up one, so desperate for spin-offs, they go, all right, what if Susie and yeah, no, it's earlier, I think. It's like them as babies.
No, it's them in preschool.
Ah, okay. Never mind.
Yeah, that has quite a different animation style. It looks more like Flash animation.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is also, as you mentioned, Rugrats All Grown Up, which I remember, like, this is how I learned what a backdoor pilot was, because there was an episode of Rugrats where the episode was called All Growed Up. And and then it was popular, so they made All Grown Up, and that ran for a couple of seasons. And then I had the realization the other day, because I remember that there was also Recess All Grown Down, which is clearly a reference to Rugrats All Grown Up. But they're fucking Recess is Disney and Rugrats is Nickelodeon. So it's weird.
Can't do that.
Like,
that's illegal.
Like, I can understand if you made like Angry Beavers All Grown Down. Angry Beavers, a show which never aired its series finale, interestingly. And it sounds real interesting. But do you ever continue the franchise? Well, there's also, the Tales from the Crib, which is like retellings of Jack and the Beanstalk and one other thing. And
Snow White or Wizard of Oz or something.
And yes, it's just their little TV specials.
Yeah. So
and the revival, obviously.
Yeah. I think first I was just going to be like, make an As Told by Ginger movie, because that's the other Klasky Csupo that I quietly think is actually their best TV show. It's sort of a Malcolm in the Middle, but from the perspective of like a 13-year-old girl. And I really like that show. But no, I think my Continue the Franchise is they should make, removed from everything else, it's not canon, it's not anything, they should make a live-action Wild Thornberrys movie.
Oh, yeah.
Like, grounded a little bit, but I think that concept and those characters could be taken seriously and de-cartoonified and become a cool, like, live-action kids movie. You know, you will have to recast Nigel Thornberry, but who can't do a Nigel Thornberry?
No, don't.
I just keep very old and frail Tim Curry as Nigel Thornberry.
Yeah, wheelchair user.
Who are actors with big noses? Adrian Brody?
Andy Samberg.
Actors with big noses. Adam Driver. Driver is yes. Nigel Thornberry. So yeah, that's my Continue the Franchise.
Yeah, As Told by Ginger was cool. The cool thing about As Told by Ginger is like the characters aged. I think make an Real Monsters movie.
That is another Klasky Csupo one, yeah.
And Duckman was their other one.
That's right.
Yeah.
Didn't like that one as much.
And there's something called Santo Bagito, which I've never heard of. Fuck is this?
Santo Bagito. Are they still around, Klasky Csupo? Are they still doing stuff?
The last thing they did was Preschool Days in 2008, and like As Told by Ginger was their last one, and All Grown Up ran 2008 as well. But then they're credited for the Rugrats 2021. But I imagine it's probably more like you have to put our names on it because we invented it. But yeah, I guess when did Klasky and Csupo break up? Because they were
like mid Rugrats, like during Rugrats.
All right. They divorced in 1995.
Remained amicable.
Yeah.
Worked together.
I want to see a sequel to All Grown Up. I want to see it go even further. Dilf Pickles. You know, like pick up the Rugrats characters, but you know they're doing that like the Powerpuff live action series where it's like they were child superheroes. Well, it's I think a couple of people have left it, and it's like was being retooled, but that kind of thing where it's like you treat it a lot more like, like, because surely they would be put into like foster care at some point because their parents are so negligent.
That
like follow through with the actual implications of like all the stuff that happened to you when you were a literal baby. And you would be all these suppressed memories, and like you're remembering it as like, oh, remember how we rode in a Reptar Ava through Paris, and it's like, no, that can't have happened. Your mind is you're trying to deal with trauma.
Yeah.
And also like even the fact that in All Grown Up that it's still the same core group of friends is unrealistic. Yeah, I don't know, like getting the old gang back together because. Tommy's like revealing his trauma.
The idea that these babies, they went missing for at least a day, and it was worldwide news. They piloted a giant reptile robot through Paris, though I don't know if anyone knew it was them. And then they got shipwrecked, and all of this would have had to have happened within the space of 1 year because they don't age, right?
Yeah.
Which means that these babies. Like it'd be like they'd grow up being famous, like, oh, you're Tommy Pickles. Can I get a photo with you? Can I get your autograph? And it's like dealing with being famous for a bad reason.
Yeah. All right, now it's time for the worst segment of the show. This is called Ranked at Franchise. We're over on letterboxd.com/cultpopture. You can find a list of a ranking of every franchise we've ever covered on Film Franchise Fortnights. I guess for this, are we going to have to do 2 entries?
Because
part of me, because what we do is we go, like we put the first film of the franchise to represent the entire franchise. Part of me wants to put Rugrats Go Wild on the list to represent the 4.
Yeah, because it's not like there are Wild Thornberrys movies. There's a single one, whereas there's definitively a Rugrats franchise of movies, where there's only one Wild Thornberrys movie, and then they share half a movie with the Rugrats.
Or so do we just put the Rugrats movie on here?
I think so.
Okay,
yeah.
All right. And we don't have to worry about the Wild Thornberrys.
No.
Okay,
yeah.
So, cool.
I'm sure they'd go right next to each other if we did rank both of them.
So last episode we quite controversially, not really.
No one cared.
Added a
because no one listens to this segment.
Gave a new number.
They're gone.
Gave a new number 1 to Before Sunrise. Do we think this is going to be near that?
No, I do not think. I think you're going to say, are we going to crown number 1 twice in a row? So we've got the Nymphomaniac constant, which represents the midpoint between when something goes from mostly good to mostly bad. What's just above Nymphomaniac?
Mighty Ducks.
I like this more than Mighty Ducks.
Okay, High School Musical?
Nah, let's put it between High School Musical and Mighty Ducks.
Okay, sweet. Cool, saving that. And we get to be done with this for another day. Now, normally we would reveal our next franchise, but not gonna do it. We're going off for we're going offline, I should say, for a couple of weeks just to enjoy a little bit of a break. The next franchise, whatever it may be, will be the start of season 7, and that'll be a surprise. Until then, we're going to be just releasing some Patreon sample packs. So if you haven't joined the Patreon yet, these are examples of what you can expect if you do join it. And you can join that Patreon over at patreon.com/cultpopture. That's where you can support us financially. You can also support us mentally and emotionally by joining our Discord, which there is a link to in the show notes, as well as following us on Instagram and Twitter at cultpopture. You can email us at cultpopturemedia@gmail.com, and you can of course subscribe to us at all the different places that you would subscribe to a podcast on, such as iTunes or YouTube. We have a YouTube channel. And until in a couple of weeks, have fun in is it canon where you're going? I said it at the start of this episode, yeah.
Okay, so you're going to Paris, right? But it's going to look a lot like China. Have fun over there, Richard. And
if I make it.
Yeah, that's true.
Again, this might have dated really badly, and I won't be listening back to it. But I will still be taking a break from the podcast.
Alrighty, so see you then, and stay tuned for the post-credit scene coming at you after this music ends. Welcome along to the post-credit scene. This will be the last post-credit scene for a couple of weeks. This is a segment at the end of each episode where if you donate to our Patreon, $5 or more over at patreon.com/cultpopture, you get to give us something to talk about, and this is the post-credit scene. Richard, who's it from and what is it?
This is from Michael Prefontaine, and which possibly, other than when I fudged it with Before Sunrise, this is possibly the best marriage of episode and post-credit scene.
Excellent.
Although I will say I don't endorse this because it is...
Oh my god.
Well, anyway, post-credit scene suggestion. This is from Michael Prefontaine. It says, you have a baby in a microwave. For every second you run the microwave with the baby in it, you get $1 million. How long do you set the microwave for?
I don't put the baby in the microwave.
This is like skirting with being a dead baby joke, which people have said before that, like, if you like dead baby jokes, fucking join the Cult Popture podcast, which I never having made them and not liking them. I wouldn't say not really like, I hate dead baby jokes. I think they're so stupid.
Maybe that's why we didn't like the Rugrats movies, just because they're basically skirting with dead baby jokes as well.
I think I could... So
don't answer the question.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, I was like, I could quite comfortably, like, one second isn't gonna hurt the baby, and $1 million is like more money than I'll probably ever see in my life at one point. But then I had the thought.
I'm glad you added at one point. I was like, Richard, you'll see $1 million.
Yeah, I'll probably never see it in one go.
You won't be able to retire on $1 million.
Yeah. But then I had the thought of like, I thought, well, okay, how attached am I really to babies? And then I thought, well, okay, if I make it, like, if I put one of my cats in the microwave, I was like, I couldn't do that even for a second. I would feel horrible.
Your fur babies.
My fur babies. Yeah, I've really.
Well, who knows?
Yeah.
Richard, maybe when you're standing there in front of the microwave and the baby is in your hands, maybe then you'll discover you can't do it as well.
Yeah, or maybe...
You know, you've really got to see the baby. You know, a woman
I feel like I'd also have to see the $1 million.
A woman becomes a parent when she gets pregnant. A man doesn't become a father until he's standing at the microwave holding their newborn child.
And turning down $1 million.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, well, I'm going to go... Well, speaking of that, I'm going to go make some dinner.
Same.
It's fucking 9:30 at night. I have to get up early tomorrow.
All right, man.
I'm going to
see
make
you
some
later.
pasta.
Oh.
I bought dinosaur, like, animal-shaped pasta.
Is it Reptar?
Zoo animals pasta. Nah, I think it's zoo animals rather than dinosaurs. Very excited. Anyway.